What does it take to become a leader? There are certain traits that you need to look for to identify a person well suited to lead groups or masses. You might be wondering, what are these characteristics and what makes them fundamental for a leader? Luckily, someone's done the work for us. In this video, we'll look at clinical psychologist Jordan Peterson's ideas on leadership. What are they, and why does he think they're important? Let's find out. First off, Dr. Peterson starts the conversation by emphasizing on the ability to communicate. Peterson says that a leader is somebody who has a clear sense of direction. Without a goal in mind, how can you possibly lead? Now, a goal implies a code of ethics. You must be able to express that destination through a story. On that note, you shouldn't actively try to motivate others. Let them come to you. According to Peterson, motivating people is managerial jargon. And what you should do instead is seek out something that's worth doing, something you truly believe in. This could be something you would devote a significant chunk of your life to, and you need to have compelling reasons for doing so. Then, if you are a leader, you'll need to be able to communicate and express everything in a way that also speaks to other people's understanding. If you wanted to collaborate with someone, say us, on a business, you would need to explain why it's not just eminently justifiable, but also more important than everything else we might be doing at the same time. And then you'd have to explain what's in it for you and what's in it for us. And here's how the two of us could grow the company. What's more, Dr. Peterson then draws attention to Jean Piaget, the developmental psychologist. The term equilibrated state is used by Piaget, which is a condition created by a group of people in which everyone participates freely. He deduced this in part by observing how children set up games. If kids are going to play a pretend game, they must first establish a small narrative. It's almost as if they create a tiny play and assign everyone their roles before manifesting the play, and that's how they think. But everyone needs to take their part freely, otherwise the game would end. Piaget's ethical analytic thesis was that a game in which everyone participates willingly is more sustainable and fruitful than one in which individuals are compelled to participate. And that was the essential contrast he made between the usefulness of liberty and the utility of despotism. Because, as authoritarians say, do this or else. That is one method of structuring society. However, Piaget claimed that the costs of enforcement are so great that the liberal society would inevitably outpace the authoritarian society. If you want to establish an institution, you can accomplish that on authoritarian lines. But then you're really using punishment and fear to get people to cooperate. It is always better to positively encourage them. If you are able to do so, people will join in the game freely. You don't need to rule over them. If you have any knowledge of dealing with complicated processes, you know that these are the best conditions for engaging with other people. Following up, where do people go from here? There is, however, an important implication of that. Consider this. Let's pretend you've got your company and your goals, and you're off to do something meaningful, and you have a wonderful story to tell about it. So you need to get folks on board now, and you have two options. Either say, go home and devote 4 to 5 hours to creating a career plan that outlines how you can benefit our organization, or you may reply, no, you go home and you make a life plan with your work at this company as a subset. Then picture doing that with 100 people for each group. And then you put these employees in a year-long competition to see who is the most productive. Pick the better choice. It's the people who are able to make a rough blueprint for their lives. They are 10% more productive. So by having your employees create a life plan, you can increase company productivity by 10%. You want people to be involved in something valuable with their lives, because if they can't do it for themselves, what makes you think they'll do it for your organization? You want them to realize how working for you helps them achieve their higher order goal. Lastly, what if that doesn't pan out the way you want it to? If any of your employees are unable to develop that integrated, hierarchical connection, well, Dr. Peterson thinks they should look for another job, since this is not the job for them. How are you going to stay motivated if your career is at odds with your life? life. You simply can't. At the very least, the internal conflict will keep you trapped in a headlock. So assume that you're trying to persuade everyone to move in the same direction. But we don't mean eradicating all differences of opinion though. It's as if the corporation as a whole has a point, and then each individual within that organization has a point. But they're all incorporated into one overarching logical narrative. That is the goal of leadership, and to make that happen at all levels of the company. That's exactly what you need to do. Although incredibly challenging, doing it results in the birth of an excellent organization. Again, we'd like to reiterate that no one is born a leader. It's a skill. It must be learned, honed, and perfected like any other. And anyone has the capacity to do that. Now moving on to other news. First up, the villain in the upcoming film, Don't Worry Darling, was apparently based on JP. Olivia Wilde is at the heart of yet another tale concerning problematic men. Don't Worry Darling is set in a fantasy mid-century modern planned community, where actress Florence Pugh starts to suspect that not everything is as it seems. Chris Pine co-stars as Frank, with Harry Styles and Florence Pugh leading the film as a 1950s couple whose ideal lives are upended when Pugh's Alice discovers her husband's terrible secret when one of the local housewives goes missing. In a recent interview with Interview magazine, Wilde stated that the idea for Frank's character, the psychological thriller's villain, was based on Jordan Peterson. They built that character on this psychotic individual, Jordan Peterson, who serves as the incel community's pseudo-intellectual idol, according to Wilde. She went on to describe incels as disenfranchised, largely white guys who feel they are entitled to sexual intimacy from women. They feel as though society has robbed them, that the concept of feminism is at odds with nature, and that we need to be shoved back into our original state. Is Dr. Peterson really a self-appointed incel messiah though? David Futrell, a journalist, plunged into the incel trenches to chronicle their support for Peterson. One would-be mentee, calling himself an anime incel, declared that, yes, he is on their side. And he is really intelligent. He's simply not as aggressive yet because he knows the media will crush him for that. JP completely understands the incel problem, and he adores him. Quite the adoring fan, if we dare say ourselves. Following up, JP just had to clap back at Wilde for her comments. Over the weekend, Dr. Peterson retaliated against Wilde by saying that things could be worse because at least Pine is reputed to be quite an attractive man. He also expressed his desire that Chris Pine, who is currently berating him in the most recent piece of propaganda put out by the woke, self-righteous bores and thugs who now rule Hollywood and demand the production of such tripe, at least pays homage to the sartorial beauty of his extremely formal public attire. And that's all? He handled this with an unexpected level of panache. Sounds weird coming from the same person that went on a furious rant after being banned on Twitter, but good for him though. Finally, Dr. Peterson's daughter has come forward with a less sarcastic statement too. Michaela Peterson denied the idea that her father is a hero to incels. My dad is not pro-incel, Michaela claimed on her Opposing Views podcast. She then presented a video of her father criticizing incels and urging them to focus on themselves rather than blaming the world for their problems on Joe Rogan's podcast. That is certainly in tandem with Dr. Peterson's clean your room mantra. It would be weird for him to support anyone that refuses to take responsibility for their own conditions. With that said, Dr. Peterson also talks a fair bit about sexual selection. Maybe that is what leads an incel into thinking, wow, he is literally talking about me. Also, during the recording, Michaela called her father and told him that he was partially the inspiration for a character played by Chris Pine in Wilde's new film. That's how he got the news. That's a wrap for this video. What are your thoughts on Dr. Peterson's take on leadership? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.